All right. Does anyone not know the story of the prodigal son? Maybe I'll read it very quickly. So in the Gospel of Luke is the only place this story is, and it's a parable. Parable means that it's not a story that really happened. Then he said, a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he divided to them his livelihood. So you guys see what's happening? The younger son, said to his dad, give me my share of the inheritance, right? So what's he kind of saying to his dad? Huh? Worse. Worse. You're dead. When do you get inheritance from your parents? They die. So he said, why don't you just die now and give me the money? It's a lovely thought. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. So he took the money, he went to another place, and he went and lived in a prodigal life. Prodigal means like a lost life. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. So he spent all his money, and then there was a recession. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and sent him into his field, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. So his job was to feed the pigs. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. So so he was so hungry that he would rather eat what the pigs were eating. But when he came to himself, and I like that, he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, so now he's going to practice what he's going to say. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired servants. So he's rehearsing what he's going to say. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran on his neck and kissed him. So he was walking to his dad, and his dad did what? Ran. When he's still a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. Did you notice a difference in the two things that were said? The father didn't let him finish. He was going to say, and take me as your hired servant, when he practiced. But the father cut him off. And bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For my son was dead and is alive again. He is lost and he is found. And they began to be merry. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. So the son was out in the field working. He hears the party. He comes in, and his brother has come back, and his dad has killed the fatted calf. What's the brother's reaction? He was angry, and he would not go in. Therefore his father came out from the party, left the son, left the dancing, and went out to this son, and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, Lo, many years I have been serving you. I have never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat that I might make merry with my kids, with my friends. A kid is another, I was putting it in, a kid is another word for a goat, some translations. So he's basically saying, you're killing the fatted calf, but you never even let me have a goat to slaughter with my friends, and we'd eat and have a party. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots. What's a harlot? Hookers. You killed the fatted calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you're always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. Glory be to God forever. Amen. There's so many. This is probably the greatest parable in of all the parables. And if you learn one thing in the Bible, this is the only thing you need to know. This story. That's all you need to know about everything of who God is, how he interacts with us, how he treats us, how he cares for us, and how much freedom he gives us. So why did Christ tell this parable? Unfortunately, the people of the Old Testament didn't really understand who God was. They thought he was a God that if you did things for him, he'd be happy. And you had to do stuff. Now, unfortunately, this God sounds a lot like the God we worship today. We think we worship. We think we have a God who wants us to do stuff. But that's not the God we have. We have a God who lets us be, who lets us live with complete freedom. And we've talked a lot about this idea, how much freedom God gives us, a freedom of will, a freedom of choice, a freedom to kill people if we want to, a freedom to commit any sin we want, a freedom to cuss him out, a freedom to kill Christ if we wanted. Free. And this is a freedom that sometimes we try to take away from one another. You know, you'll go to church or you'll talk to a Christian and say, you know, you can't do that. Yeah, I can. I can do that. I can do whatever I want. I have freedom. And so God lets us have this freedom, even to the point where you can look at God and say, I wish you were dead. Give me my money. Give me what belongs to me. Now, would God respond to a question like that? Would I, as a father? No. My son said that to me. I said, get out of my face before I hit you. But yet, he did, didn't he? He responded in a way that was not expected. And the reason this parable is told is because there is a legitimate debate as to how God reacts to us. So when we defy God, and this story, I don't think you can think of a better way to tell a story of defying your father, right? Hey, Dad, I wish you were dead. Give me your money. I want to spend it with prostitutes. All right, that's pretty good. That's pretty high on the defy your dad scale, okay? So God's giving us this example, and Christ is saying, look, this is as high as it gets. And now how are you going to react to me? I've done some pretty bad things. I've done some pretty bad things. How are you, God, going to react to me when I come back? And I think this is a key point for everybody, not just young people, even old people, even like really old people, like 50-year-olds, even ones who are archdeacons, who don't really sin, but if they did, kidding. So this is a legit, does God get angry? Does God say, well, it's about time you come back? Do you think I'd really take you back? Because this is the thought we have, isn't it? Sometimes we come back and we're like, I can't even face myself. I don't even want to look at myself after what I've done and the way I've acted. Has anyone felt that? I have. On many, many, many occasions. Too many to count. So I don't want to face me. There's no way I could face a friend. There's no way I could face my kids. There's no way I could face my spouse. There's no way I could face a priest or a clergy member or anyone in the church. I really don't want to face anyone. I don't even want to look at myself. So then how am I going to go up and face God? And we know that people are afraid to die, aren't they? That's where fight or flight comes in, right? You know, heart rate goes up, testosterone, all the things, adrenaline's released. Lots of things happen when you're threatened. We don't want to die, right? It's a natural instinct. But I wonder intellectually why we don't want to die. Is it we're afraid of death? During COVID, we saw lots of people act crazy, do lots of crazy things because they didn't want to get sick. They didn't want to die. They wanted to have toilet paper. I don't know. So why don't they want to die? I mean, how do you feel when you die? You don't know. Nothing. You don't feel anything. You're dead. Nothing hurts. Someone could poke you. You're not going to feel any pain. So why are you so scared? I don't think they're scared of dying. I think they're scared of what's after death, right? And that's the part that gets us all. And I think that's the part that scares us, really. So the question is, how does God treat someone who comes back? So if you look at this story and you think to yourself, who am I in this story? Am I the prodigal son? Am I the older brother? Am I the father? Am I the servants? Who am I in this story? Who'd you say you are? Hmm? Think you're the big brother? You're not that late, Michael. You want a chair? You're good? All right. Who would you say you are in the story? We're talking about the prodigal son. Older brother? Younger brother? Father? I think it's kind of silly to say you're one of them, right? Because why? You're probably all of them at some point in your life. You may be all of them in the same day. You may be the older brother and at 11 a.m. and by noon you're the younger brother and at 2 p.m. you're the father. You're probably all the things, right? Because eventually someone messes up against you, right? Have you ever had someone do something really bad to you? Yeah, right? Someone stab you in the back? Someone wish you were dead, take half your money? Maybe not that, but close. I have, right? So you've been in the father role. You've had someone come back to you and apologize. We all have. And I want you to compare how you handled it to how the father handled it. Now, I don't want you to feel bad about how you handled it because I'm pretty sure you didn't handle it as well as the father handled it. I didn't. I had a lot of, oh, really, bro? Now? Really? Huh? Huh? A lot of that. Okay? But that's not how the father handled it. That's okay. Okay? But what I want you to figure out is, luckily, God doesn't handle it the way you handle it. Right? Because if God was the way people are, none of us would have a chance. None of us would have a chance. If God was nearly as mean as Christians, if he's nearly as big a jerk as Christians are, none of us would have a chance. Thank God he's not like us. Gandhi had this great saying. He said, I love your Christ. He's talking about Christians, but I don't like the Christians. Your Christ, he's a great guy. He says good stuff. The Christians, not so much. And that's okay. Is that okay? Is it okay that we fall short of the image of God? Sure. All right. So the end of the story, I want to focus on one part of this story. The end of the story, if I was to tell you the end of the story is one brother made the father happy and another brother did not make the father happy. How would you guess the story? Would you guess from the very beginning of the story, the guy who said, Dad, wish you're dead, give me half your money so I can go hang out with hookers, he'd make the father happy? Or the other son, the older son who was working in the field and serving his dad and doing all the right things, that he would make his father happy? If I told you one would make his father sad and one would make his father happy, you would have guessed a completely different outcome, right? You wouldn't have guessed it the way it happened. Why not? Why would you have messed up this story so bad? Huh? What about your own thought process? Okay. So he said something very interesting. The bad person is the one who's going to end up being the bad guy. But then the story switched. So it had a surprise ending. All right. Tell me about this word bad guy. So bad about him. Yeah, he wants his dad dead. Okay, I've felt that before. Not the end of the world. We've all wished, we get grounded, we get some taken away, like, wish you're dead, that thought's crossed all our minds a couple of times. Hmm. Poke with me a little bit. Tell me about the word bad. Was he? Anyone? Thoughts? Hmm? By kind of the, if you will, stereotypical definition. What made him bad by the stereotypical definition? Should have just landed from Seattle. Okay, I want everybody, when he walks up, say, hi, Shinuda. Okay, but I'll give you a one, two, three, okay? Someone said something. What? He may have been confused. Hmm. What was he confused about? Matthew. All right, ready, everybody? You guys want chairs? Sure. All right. Hi, you take a chair. Tfaddal, Habibi. We brought these for all who are. All right. More people are joining. Let me see what time it is. Oh my, that's late. All right. I want you to poke with me a little bit. Why is he bad? Really? You can't ask questions. So we're talking about the prodigal son. Was he bad? All right, sorry. Huh? He was honest. Is that a bad thing? Well, I mean, I'm taking it a step further by saying he wants his dad dead, but that's, the only way you get the money is through inheritance, right? So to me, the reason this story ends differently and has a plot twist at the end is the first part to me, with any kind of history, is completely predictable. People rebel, youth rebel, adults rebel. That's totally normal, right? Rebellion is a part of the instincts that God has given us, right? So we have instincts like sex drive, right? Is that a sin? No. That's an instinct that is put in us by God for purposes of procreation, right? I mean, if we didn't have that, people would be, wiped out within 50 years or 100 years, right? We have a desire to eat, right? Is that a sin? No, right? Unless it goes too far, then it turns into gluttony, okay? Rebellion is also an instinct that God has placed in us. In fact, the biggest rebel was whom? It was Christ. Total rebel, right? In fact, he rebels against all of religion at that time, and not just that, but against the standards of being a person, right? Did he just? Where did he live? He was homeless, guys. Foxes have holes, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head. He lived homeless. He didn't come and serve the homeless. He was homeless. He just wandered like a homeless guy. That breaks the decorum. That breaks standard of like a person. right? Forget anything more than that. He rebels against all of religion. Rebels against all of the thinking of the time. He's a rebel. Now, God puts in us that instinct. Why? Why do we have an instinct of rebellion? Huh? Free will, good. Yeah, we're called to rebel against the world, right? I mean, so when everyone tells you you need to wear this to look good or to be cool or to be whatever, you can say, no, I don't. I don't need to dress like everybody. I don't need to look like everybody. I don't need to talk like everybody. When people say you have to act a certain way, I don't need to do that. That rebellion keeps you from just being part of the sheep like everybody else. So rebellion is a key instinct in us, right? And that rebellion obviously gets honed in when teenage years, right? I mean, as a baby, it starts, right? I mean, you take the child's hand and you try to put it and they're like, and they throw and they're pushing back against you and they're trying to grab the knife and they're doing all these things, right? So there you got to stop it, right? But then as a teenager, the rebellion gets fine tuned, right? And then we get deceived, don't we? Instead of rebelling against the world and against the things that are out to hurt us, who do we rebel against? The people who love us the most, our parents, right? So that power, that cannon is aimed at the wrong person, right? You don't want to rebel against the world. You want to rebel against the people who love you the most, your parents and God, right? But that instinct is still a good instinct, and it's an important one. And what this father did was he didn't suppress the rebellion, right? He didn't break it, and I would have tried to break it. I would have said, over my dead body. I would have locked horns. You ain't going anywhere. If you think you're doing that, I would have done what? I would have suppressed my son's free will. But God doesn't do that. He just lets us. And once God gave us that free will, that choice, he has to live with that freedom of will. Does that mean I can do genocide? Yeah. I can slaughter babies? Yeah. I can be Hitler? Yeah. You gave me the free will. Right? So this is the kind of God we have. So when I see Christians suppressing everyone's free will and you can't do this and do this and do that and don't do this, that isn't consistent with the way God is. He's that open and he allows us to do whatever. Yeah. Well, we'll get to children in a second. So children are, I'm talking to you guys. This isn't a parenting class yet, unless there's something I don't know about. That was a joke. Okay. All right. But let me focus on the point. Why did I guess the outcome of this story incorrectly? Primarily because I'm judging it from the outside, right? I didn't see what's in that son, the young son, that's good. Okay. And as soon as I judge something from the outside, what did I miss? The older son was faking it, right? It came out when the younger son was accepted. The older son said, really? I've served you all these years? Does a son serve his father like a servant? I mean, there are stages of life, right? In the beginning, we kind of serve our parents because we're scared they're going to punish us. And then as we get older, we serve our parents because we're going to get, the car or a phone or an allowance. But then when we get older, we don't serve our parents because I'm scared. We don't serve our parents because I want something out of my parents. Why do we serve our parents? Because we love them, right? Another chair. Come in. Right? Because we love them. So the son revealed it when he said, all these years I've served you. So he didn't love his dad. He was hoping for what? Money. So what was the son displaying? A big problem with Christians. Hypocrisy. I'm going to show you one face, but I'm actually going to think something else. What I liked about the younger son is he didn't do that. He said, you know what, Dad? I want you dead. And if I can't have you dead, I at least want your money. That's not a very nice thing, but it's what's in his heart. Now, you may not see that as virtuous because what was in his heart wasn't that great. You know, dead dad, half the money, harlots, not an ideal pot. Okay? You got 10. But having said that, at least he was honest. At least he said what's inside. And I give him mad respect for that. You know, one of the problems with Christianity is we know we're supposed to act a certain way. So then we act a certain way. Anyone see the problem? We're acting, right? One of the things that's been on my mind the last few months and a pet peeve of mine is hate the sin, love the sinner. I hate the sin, but I love the sinner. That's what we're supposed to say. That's how you act like a Christian, right? That's what we're all taught. But the question is, do we love the sinner? When I watch television and I hear about a murderer who killed children, and then they catch the guy and he looks like a piece of garbage, do I think to myself, man, I love him? Do I? No. Right? And when we see people engaging in a behavior that's not the way we think is appropriate, do we think, man, I love that guy? Man, I love her? And this cuts both ways, right? Cuts across left, right, Republican, Democrat. Name your person who you don't like. And as soon as I see them acting, I don't say I love them. But I'll lie and say, but I hate the sin, I love the sinner. But that's hypocrisy. So I want to encourage all of you to focus on this aspect of the prodigal son. What's in your heart? Just say it. Just say it. Because it is a much better way to live. So when I think about diseases, some diseases show symptoms, right? When you have, I don't know, a virus, first thing that happens, no laughing, first thing that happens is what? You get a fever. Body alerts you. There is something broken inside, right? You have a pain. You have something hurts. Those problems, they're easy. My stomach is killing me. I'm going to go to the doctor. That's great. The diseases that really get you are what? The hidden symptom ones, right? The ones where you start to feel something, you go to the doctor and he says, you've had cancer for 4 years. It's stage 4. You've pretty much done. It's destroyed you from the inside. And you had no idea. That disease, those are the scary ones because they're symptomless, right? And living a life where I keep stuff inside acts that way, right? Keeping stuff on the inside, right? The Bible teaches us sin is death. One second. Let me finish this point. Sin is death. Okay? So when I take sin and I keep it on the inside and I hide it and I foster it and I protect it and I let it grow and I feed it, what does it do? It just kills me on the inside, right? And that disease will continue to grow and kill you the longer you do what? Hide it. So the first thing we do with cancer is what? We get the MRI, we find it, and then we nuke it. And we put chemo on it, and we put radiation on it, and we get a surgeon, and he goes in and he cuts it out. And the first thing we do when you discover that tumor is you got to get it out of there, right? Because the longer it's on the inside, the longer it grows and eats away at the rest of your normal cells. Yeah, Mike. All right, so let me get there. So when we are interacting with someone else, it's okay not to like people. I don't like most of you, but you have to love everybody. Fine. But I don't have to like everybody. And that's okay. There are people you're just not going to like. You don't have to go on vacation with everybody. You certainly don't have to marry everybody, you know, but I do have to love everybody. Okay. But now as I start to interact with people, there's a wisdom in how much I interact with them based on how much I like them. Okay. As I interact with someone who I know, who I love, who I care about, who cares about me, and they rub me the wrong way. Has this ever happened to anyone? Yeah, everybody, always, right? People rub each other the wrong way. You say something that pisses the other person off, they get a little upset. What's the correct response? I'll tell you the wrong response. Keep it on the inside. Brew on it. Get angry. I can't believe she said that. I can't believe they went there without me. I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they would say that about me. I can't believe whatever. Okay? And then you brew and you brew and you get angrier and angrier. And then I'll tell you what you really, really shouldn't do. Tell anyone else. Right? And this is mistake number 1, 2, and 3 for most of us. Right? Because the person does the thing and you're like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm not upset. Oh, that's fine. And then, right? Start talking about them to everybody and talking about them to other people, telling stories, sharing what happened. You guys know how this ends, right? The person finds out. How do I know? It always ends that way. Every time. Always. In the history of Earth. You talk about someone, they find out. Done deal. So the worst thing you can do is tell other people. The best thing you do is you can directly talk face to face with them. I'll tell you guys a story. There's a saint named Saint Siloam, and his dad asked him. So there was like 6 or 7 brothers, I forget, and each one was supposed to make dinner every night. And it was his turn to make dinner. It was on a Friday, and in the Orthodox Church, people fast on Fridays, which means they don't eat. They eat vegan food. So he made dinner, and he forgot that they were fasting. So he made non-fasting food. The dad comes home from work, and he sees that the food is not fasting. The dad is a righteous man. How does the dad react? Huh? He flips the tables. No, I'm kidding. What does he do? He doesn't say a word. He just eats. And then he waits. How long do you think he waited? 6 months. He waited 6 months, and then he told his son, do you remember when I asked you to make dinner 6 months ago on a Friday? We were fasting that day, and you forgot to make fasting food. So the impact of that decision of his father, so obviously his dad is a better man than I am. I would have been about 6 seconds, maybe 6 milliseconds, right, before I would have lost it. Not over that, but um, the impact of that dad's decision was so impactful that he wrote about it in the story of his life later. He said, let me tell you about my dad. So what's the point of this story? You can wait. You don't have to talk about it right now. You can wait until you're not angry. You can wait until you've processed it. You can wait until you've filtered through what's emotion and what's not. You can filter through what's your ego and what's not. Because I'll give you guys some insight. As soon as someone offends you or pisses you off or does something you don't like or does something the wrong way or all the things that happen in friendships and in church and in community and wherever you are, the first battle is where? It's with yourself. That's where the battle goes. When someone does something and upsets you and you have an interaction that doesn't go well, someone yells at you, someone says something that's unpleasant, the battle goes inside. The battle is with me. Why am I upset? Why am I upset right now? Is it my ego? Is it because I just think I'm too good to be talked to like that? Does this guy know who I am? This guy's an idiot. Do you know what she does? I could ruin her right now. I got so much crap on her, I could finish her tomorrow. That's where the battle is. Battle goes on the inside. And then once you've filtered through all that, why am I so upset? Why do I want to ruin him or her? Why am I blah, 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 blah? Then you can process, right? Then it may not take 6 months, 6 days, 6 hours at this point would be great. And then you can say, you know what? 6 days later, remember when you went out with my friends and didn't call me? That really bothered me. That hurt my feelings. And especially when you posted about it. That was stupid. I wouldn't say stupid, right? So who did you talk to? The person, directly. And this kind of openness is what we see in the prodigal son. It's like, Dad, I want the money. Maybe it's not what I should want, but that's what I want. That openness is great. And this is, by the way, what the church encourages. What do we call this? Confession. And it doesn't have to be to a clergy member. It could be to one another. It could be opening to another person, a spiritual guide, a friend. But you see, when the cancer is on the inside, it's dangerous. You guys know, you guys probably don't know too much about it, but HIV, AIDS, during the 90s, 80s and 90s, when I was young, it was a new disease and it was very scary. People were getting it left and right. They didn't know how it was contracted, and it was a big problem, especially in the gay community. But one of the things about AIDS is you couldn't get it from a toilet seat. You know why? Because HIV is a very sensitive virus. As soon as it hits the air, it dies. As soon as it hits the air, it dies. So you can't get it from the air. You can't get it from someone talking to you. You can't get it from a toilet seat. There's no way to get it other than very intimate contact. Why is this important? Because a lot of times when we have a thought, and it's not a good thought, as soon as you say it, it dies. As soon as you expose it to sunlight, it dies. And sometimes that evil that's in us, that bad feeling, that gross, as soon as you confess it, as soon as you proclaim it, as soon as you open yourself to the fact that, yeah, because you'll start telling a story and then the person will be like, oh, and they're like, yeah, I guess it's not that big of a deal after all. Or maybe I was overreacting. Or maybe, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. You said what? Yeah, I shouldn't have said that either. Right? Why? Because you're exposing it to daylight. You're exposing it to the sun. Right? So hypocrisy is the opposite of that. I'm going to keep everything on the inside. I'm going to brew about it. I'm going to think about it unclearly. I'm not going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not going to be meticulous in the way I process it. I'm just going to say, he did this. He's such an idiot. He's such an idiot. He's such an idiot. Right? And I'm not going to ask, what did I do? Or why am I upset? Or did they really need to call you? Or maybe you didn't call them last week. Right? There's a million ways I could process it, right? Okay. Michael, did I answer your question or no? Okay. Anyway, so I'll just stop now. Does anybody have any questions, comments, criticisms, complaints?
You said earlier, we have a rebellion towards our parents and God, but it seems like we don't have that of the world. You said it was good. Why is that so?
No, the rebellion that God has put into us is rebellion that we're supposed to use against the world. It's a rebellion we're supposed to use when we see lots of people doing the wrong thing, and that thing that stops us and say, you know what, I'm not going to be like everybody. I don't need to be like everybody, you know? And that rebellion is obviously suppressed in in the eighth grade, right? When everyone is trying to look like everyone else. I went to my daughter's cross country banquet, track meet, whatever, and every girl had uh, a nice dress on and tennis shoes, right? And Converse, I think, right? So it's all the same look, and they all looked identical, right? And you're just like, okay, I guess that's the look that we're all supposed to have, right? But that rebellion is supposed to stop that, like I don't want to just be look like everyone else. And then we take that rebellion and we shoot it towards God, shoot it toward our parents, shoot it towards our friends, to people that we shouldn't be rebelling against. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? I've been told I don't pause long enough for questions, that I should pause longer for questions in order to solicit more questions. People are nodding no, like, let us go to UTC. That's why we're here. Okay. If nobody has any questions, I'll just summarize by saying, um, let's encourage this practice, right? Someone wrongs me, discuss it with them. But wait, be smart. Don't do while you're mad. Don't do while you're emotional. Process why you're upset first. Process what they could have done better. Give them the benefit of the doubt, and then discuss with people. Sometimes just that process clears it out, but opening up to each other so that we're not living a life of hypocrisy. Okay. Glory be to God forever. Amen. Thank you all for coming.